In category 7, we'll look at English words that end in IC. And there are around 246 of these words which we can convert quite easily into Spanish. An example word would be classic. The key sound, or the key to remember, is that IC goes to ICO. So classic becomes clásico. Another example would be the word toxic. This again goes to tóxico. It's important to notice the accent point. So classic, clásico. Toxic, tóxico. You'll find this accent appearing at the top of or the upper part of these words throughout the entire group. Remember, all we're adding is an O onto the end. Clásico, tóxico. So an O at the end and this accent point, which is important to stress. Because if you were to ignore this and say clásico or tóxico, you would not be understood. Let's try one for yourself. We have the word here of traffic. So how would you say this in Spanish? Tráfico. Once again, we did not say tráfico, which wouldn't be understood. It must be tráfico. To express the traffic, so here we have the definite article, the. This would be el tráfico. As a general rule in Spanish, most words, most nouns that end in the letter O are masculine words classified as masculine words in grammar. So the will always be el for these masculine words. El tráfico. In the last lesson when we were describing things, we were using a lot of feminine words. So la casa, la fiesta, la niña. See how it matches the A with la. Fiesta, A with la. Casa, A with la. So again, as a general rule, if a noun ends in A, tends to be feminine, la, where nouns that end in O tend to be masculine and we'll use el. Something else that some of you will have noticed is that we've already come across el before. On this slide, you can see that if el has an accent, it means him. But without the accent, it means the, when referring to masculine nouns such as el tráfico. The sound is exactly the same, and it's of course understood in the context of the conversation you're having, whether you mean him or the. It's only in the spelling, when it's written on the page, that you see the difference between the two. So we would have for him, para él, the accent. The traffic, el tráfico, without the accent. So once again, let's go through that little bit of vocabulary that we have for category 7 so far. How would you say classic? Clásico. Toxic. Tóxico. Traffic. Tráfico. Here's another word, public. How might you say that in Spanish? Público. Notice that in English we have the sound of pub, but in Spanish it would be pub, público. How would you say the public? El público. What about the word panic? Pánico. How would you say the panic? El pánico. There is, in Spanish, is one word, in fact, one syllable. It's simply I, spelled H-A-Y, but the H is silent and you just get this sound of I. The interesting thing is I means there is, but it also means there are. So at the same time, this one syllable of I can mean there is or there are. For example, how would you say there is traffic? Hay tráfico. The word for here is aquí. Aquí. How would you say there is traffic here? Hay tráfico aquí. Normally, to express a lot or a lot of, the word in Spanish is mucho. How would you say there's a lot of traffic? Hay mucho tráfico. What about there's a lot of traffic here? Hay mucho tráfico aquí. The word for today is hoy. Hoy. How would you say there's a lot of traffic today? Hay mucho tráfico hoy. As we know, there is and there are both the same word in Spanish. Hay. To express there isn't or there aren't, it's simply no hay. So we have hay or no hay. How would you say there isn't a lot of traffic today? No hay mucho tráfico hoy. What about there isn't a lot of traffic here? No hay mucho tráfico aquí. We have the word mucho, meaning a lot or a lot of. However, in English, we also have other sayings. We could say, there's a mountain of traffic here, or there's a ton of traffic here. In Spanish, to express these things, a mountain of or a ton of, what you will say is un montón de. It literally looks like a mountain of. Un montón de. Let's try using it. How would you say there's a ton of traffic today? Hay un montón de tráfico hoy. Now let's return back to our vocabulary in this category. Once again, how would you say classic? Clásico. Toxic. Tóxico. Traffic. Tráfico. Public. Público. Let's dive into some more words. How would you say organic? Orgánico. Comic. Cómico. Medic. Médico. Electric. Eléctrico. Historic. Histórico. Graphic. Gráfico. Demographic. Demográfico. Fantastic. Fantástico. Going back to the word historic here, hopefully you remembered to ignore the H sound and simply start your pronunciation from here. Histórico. How would you say it's fantastic for him? Es fantástico para él. It was fantastic for her. Fue fantástico para ella. It's fantastic here. Es fantástico aquí. Today is fantastic here. Hoy es fantástico aquí. Let's look at one more. We have the word music. And normally, to convert these words ending in IC, we add the O and we put an accent up the front. So you would get músico. But there's an important distinction to be aware of with this word. If you say músico, ending in an O, the meaning in Spanish is actually musician. Whereas if you want to say music as a noun, meaning the music is very good here, then it will end in an A, música. So here we have an important distinction. The music would be la música. The musician, el músico. How would you say he's a musician? Es músico. Hopefully you remembered not to put in es un músico. Remember from before that when you are saying or describing professions in Spanish, you omit this part. You don't say a or an as we do in English. You simply literally say he's musician. Es músico. Another tip from this category is this, with the word medic. Now, in Spanish, this goes to médico. Now, in Spanish, if you want to say he's a doctor, you will use this word of medic and literally say he's a medic. So it would be es médico. If you wanted to say she's a doctor, it would simply change to es médica. Now the word doctor does exist in Spanish. In fact, you just change the pronunciation, so it would be doctor or doctora. However, you tend to only use doctor or doctora when you are speaking directly to a doctor. So say you had your appointment and as you were leaving you wanted to express, "Thank you, doctor." This is when you would say, "Gracias, doctor," or "Gracias, doctora." So you are addressing them one-to-one. However, on the other hand, if you want to express that he's a doctor or she's a doctor, then in those instances, native Spanish speakers will go with the word médico or médica. So it's an important distinction just to be aware of.